My name's Gail Powley. I'm a volunteer with the Rainforest and also a volunteer with Technology Alberta, and really pleased to have this outstanding expert panel today on industrial automation, which, as many of you know, is my favorite topic because that was certainly the technical career path I took going into advanced industrial automation. And our speakers today have actually not only understand AI, but are currently pulling out AI into their products and collaborating with other organizations that are helping apply AI around the world. So also today, well, just a couple of words on the rainforest. Many of you are with us because you're either part of Rainforest Edmonton or Rainforest Calgary. And the whole rainforest concept is to bring together this perfect tech ecosystem that will grow and thrive because you have all the key ingredients, which is entrepreneurs, inventors, investors, and then champions that can help pull all three elements together, and whether it's pulling it together to meet now virtually or at facilities like you'll hear at the University of Alberta, or more, and including employees. I will mention that one thing that Rainforest really wants to support is those of us who are looking to, who enjoy working in the tech space so much, they want to work for entrepreneurial tech companies so that they can be part of diversifying Alberta's economy and building our Canadian tech organizations to become global experts, champions, and more. So very pleased to have such an illustrious panel today because there are world-renowned experts that are joining us. And I have to admit, this is quite a hefty panel. We have many people here because we enjoy quite an expertise in this space here in Alberta. So without further ado, I will turn it over to my Master of Ceremonies, Manmeet. Please take over from here.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Gail, for this title and introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Manmeet, and I have this pleasure of working with Rainforest as a steering committee member since almost about 2 months now. And in addition, I also have this chance to work with Gail in Technology Alberta. So thank you everyone for joining in, and thanks to our panel for their time and support today. I come from a biomedical science and business background, so I find these platforms very interesting to know more about the different sectors in Alberta. We've had one on health innovation in September, then we had last month a panel on clean tech, and today I'm equally excited to hear about industrial automation from our featured panelists. So without taking much time, I'll just announce general items and that please keep yourself muted. And when you want to ask a question, you can either type in the chat, but we encourage conversations. So you can just say you have a question and just ask the panelists yourself. So whichever works for you. And the session is being recorded. And so with this, I would like to turn it over to Miranda, who has also helped in organizing the session today. She is also, helping in organizing, and she will chair the panel too. So over to you, Miranda. You can introduce yourself and talk about your company and your cafe and everything about industrial automation.
Well, thank you, Mimi. So how I fit in is I also volunteer with Technology Alberta with Gail and Mimit. And through that, I found out about Rainforest Alberta, and we were talking about upcoming topic ideas. And I said, well, I'm now working at Willie Glen as a marketing manager. I've been there for about 8 months. And so I'm very new to the world of industrial automation, but I find it very exciting. So I offered up the topic idea knowing that we do have quite a few industrial automation experts in Alberta. And that's what we're kind of elevating and amplifying the talent and technology that we're producing as a province and as Canadian as well. So I kind of brought along Ian, and I know Chowdhury as well through Willie Glen, so brought them along as well. Actually, some of our panelists know each other already, which is going to be awesome, but we're just going to start with each of them introducing themselves, their company, what they're currently doing at that company, their own background and how they fit into the industrial automation space. So we'll start with going through each of the panelists, and from there we'll open it up to questions. I'm sure a lot of the guests probably have a lot more experience in industrial automation than I do, so I'm sure you'll have some great questions. So if that's it from me, except if you're in Edmonton, some hot tips. There's a new cafe opening up on 100th Street and 80th Ave near Ace Coffee Roasters. It's called Palette Cafe. You can follow it on Instagram at Palette Local. It's just going to be fresh food, wholesome food, good coffee, which this little space in the city is kind of lacking a little bit. Australia is definitely known for salads and cafes with good healthy food options, but Edmonton's not really known for that as much. So hopefully going to bring a little bit of that to Edmonton. So without taking up too much time for my own purposes, can we start with Ian? Can we hear about you and what you've been up to?
Unmute,
Yeah.
share my screen. There we go. Actually, I should just share my application. So here we go. So here's right the little title slide about me. I've been in the industry since, as Rich Timoney used to say, is before dirt. I'm an ISA fellow, member of the Automation Hall of Fame, work on standards, as you'll hear with some of the other speakers, work on standards together on ISA and IEC. I started as a solution architect at Willow Glen about 2 months ago, and married for 40 years with 2 grown daughters, from whom we've inherited 2 grand cats and a grand dog. The grand cat might jump on me later here. And I'm also a hockey referee and an avid reader. So interestingly, I do go refereeing to relax. People think that's a bit unusual. But here at Willow Glen, we do work on industrial control systems, as Arthur was saying, for rail, pipeline, power. And we do have our own developed RTUs with some unique characteristics around the globe. An Edmonton-based company that will be 50 years next year. And we use machine learning and AI in our products. And we're in Edmonton, soon to open an office here in Calgary. And what we do is we try to relate, this is our driving motive, is that in the industrial world, small improvements can lead to significant results in operating costs, environmental stewardship, capital, safety. I spent about 20 years working in the oil sands, and the saying used to be up there, you know, $1 million here, $1 million there, soon you're talking real money. They had a big initiative there, and it's one of the challenges with the autonomous vehicles is because of the rock. When it cost $40,000 for a tire, they were actually starting to look at AI 10 years ago as a way to identify sharp rocks to avoid flat tires on those vehicles. So today, what do I think are some of the challenges that industry faces? Well, old folks, we're all wanting to retire someday, cybersecurity, and then the 2 things that contradict each other up here in protectionism, right, versus global trade. And obviously, if I'm working on international standards, I'm kind of leaning towards the underlying technology for global trade. And then open source initiatives. It's amazing, you know, all of us kind of take for granted the software, but how much of the software that we use today is based on open source, like Linux, right? Any Linux is an example of open source. But of course, with challenges, we have opportunities. And so some of the big opportunities are Industry 4.0, right? Connecting everything to everything. Here's artificial intelligence, which is what the topic is today. How is 5G, now that that's starting to roll out, how is that going to impact us? We hear 5G and we think about, because it's Rogers and Bell and TELUS, but that's just one of the implementations of 5G. There's actually 3 types of 5G out there with two of them, and so there's over two of them were for automation. And there's a 3GPP group. And what they do is they've developed almost 300 use cases for how to use 5G in automation. So edge computing, here's some nice open stuff all on the right? You may have heard of Exxon's open process automation initiative. Down here on the bottom is Namur, a German group. They're talking about modularization, how we break software down into the smaller pieces. Again, these two are aligned. And then Node-RED is a tool to help architect your solutions. Redfish is for building your networks, and SparkPlug-B is kind of the SCADA version of OpenPAF, which is for refineries. And now let's put that there just so if people want to reach me, and then we'll pass on to whoever Miranda has next. Unless you have questions now rather than later.
Yeah, I open the floor. If anyone does have any questions specific to Ian and his past and what he's been up to, feel free to unmute and shout them out. Otherwise, put them in the chat box and we'll get back to them at some point. No one seems to be unmuting, so I'm going to move on to Chowdhury next. So tell us a bit about what you've been up to.
Hey, thank you, Miranda. Can you guys hear me okay? I was on mute for so long and I wanted to make sure.
You're good.
Yep, we can hear you and we can see your
Awesome.
slides.
Thank you. So just tag along what Ian said. There are so many initiatives, and I wanted to talk a little bit about our company and then talk about the power of AI and the benefits that greater society, the impact we can create on a greater society. So us as a company, we apply AI on any industrial control systems. So it could be a SCADA, PLC, DCS, or manufacturing execution systems. All we need is the access to the data, and with our innovative algorithms, we induce intelligence into the process. That's the core. And we have a strong R&D team. We are across the globe. We have operations in India and also here in Edmonton. Our core strength is, again, introducing a custom specific or an applied artificial intelligence is what our core strength is. And we take this applied artificial intelligence and apply in a process control and optimization. Our target industries are mining, oil and gas, and metals. That's where we applied, and that's our experience so far. We don't have to stop there, but being in Alberta and being in Edmonton, that's our core, and it's our version of giving back to the society. With our solutions, we were able to showcase a good cost savings with either it could be in oil and gas operations or midstream, upstream, or downstream. Okay, very quickly, I wanted to talk about why AI. Everybody talks about, yeah, we have automation, and automation is not new. What is AI going to bring, right? So one way I would like, it's easy to visualize what is the differentiation between, or the incremental or a step change that can bring AI to industrial process, right? Imagine you have a, like there are two versions of AI that you can think about. Is one being you are driving a car and you wanted to use as a cruise control. You being the in charge, and you wanted to keep whenever you want that cruise control, and you wanted to take off your foot from the pedal, you apply on it and let cruise control do the business for you. The second one is everybody talks about autonomous cars, and there are some operations you don't want. I mean, it's a repetitive. I wanted to focus on better things. Probably you wanted to hop onto an autonomous car and keep working or watching a movie, right? It would be the same in industrial setting too, right? You have a control room operators who is controlling the plant, and they constantly bombarded with the information real time. They have to make a decisions, and the decisions what they make is purely based on their experience. Goes back to what Ian said, right? You have people very experienced and they are soon to be retiring. How do we capture that knowledge and intelligence, because they know how to operate, but the guys who don't have like a 20-30 years of experience, how do we capture that, right? But the beauty is all the data is available and stored in the databases, because these control systems out there for past 20-30 years. We have data for past 20-30 years, and how do we take advantage of the data and bring that intelligence into the process so that you can have a tighter control over the process and have a consistency within the process. And having the tighter control, it's not only the company make money, but you are helping environment, reducing the greenhouse gases. Just imagine you are overheating the house, which you are not when you are not at home, right? What happens? It's you lose money because of the heating bill, and you are not getting any benefit. And on top of that, you are burning the gas and electricity, which causes a greenhouse gases eventually, right? So that's the core principle what we are helping. It's not only saving the money, but at the same time you are helping the environment, and you are helping water consumption or greenhouse gas reductions. That's what we do, the impact we create through machine learning algorithms as a company. And again, what I would suggest is, I mean, we are always hiring and we always look for the right people. And also, us being the applied company, we do a lot of work with the universities. And if somebody from university is here and if they are interested in solving the world's toughest problems in industrial or process control, talk to me. We are more than happy to sponsor and also do a fundamental research. I mean, we do the applied research, but sometimes you got to do a fundamental research, and we are more than happy to help with that. And if anybody representing an industrial sector and would like to try something, please feel free to talk to us. We will help you. With that, my contact details, and feel free to reach out to me, and I'm just email away. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Chowdhury. I like that we got a lesson there as well. We've had 2 lessons so far as we've moved through. So up next, Chris. Nice U of A tie there potentially as we go through. So tell us a bit about what you've been up to and what you're doing.
Great. Yeah, thanks for the segue, as we are located at the University of Alberta under the name Isaac. So I'm Chris Vanier, the Executive Director at Isaac Industry Sandbox and AI Computing. And essentially what that means is data and computation power to accelerate the adoption of AI by business. My background is 20 years in strategy, leadership, and operations roles in both the public and the private sector, including in a large global engineering firm, as well as advising small and medium-sized businesses, and managing startups. So have experience across the sector, and that's where I come from when I talk about Isaac. So I hope everybody can see my screen. Yes?
Yes, we can.
Great. So the journey to here really starts with a story, and it starts with a story that's really true to Alberta because it was a problem that a number of entrepreneurs were looking to solve in the field. Essentially, they got together in a co-location facility wanting to power and use bigger data to train AI models faster and cheaper. Since AI is different than production models and AI training is different and it can be highly iterative, it was a great opportunity for them to share and consider how they might accomplish the compute goals that they had together. And so as doers, they set out to find funding, location, and collaboration partners to make that happen. So it's really a true to Alberta story that brought us to now when we're scaling and working with more and more local Alberta SMEs and SMEs across Western Canada in relation to adopting AI, one of which is Entwist. So thanks, Chowdhury, for that intro. What we do can really be described in 3 areas. Computational resources and tools. You can think of it as a virtual garage that can be private to the company itself or shared. And it's where you can tinker, train, and learn on some really powerful equipment that's often not available to small and medium-sized enterprises. With the data sandbox, really that's about different grains of data, like was alluded to earlier by the other presenters, that can work together in the right combinations to build solutions. And you can be, the one in the corner of the sandbox working on your own private solution, proprietary, or you can look to share with others and look at open data sources, which was mentioned in the first presentation, and open solutions. The last piece is about the community, the mentoring, the matchmaking, and the game-changing coalition. So it's really about comprising the team that can help in the adoption of AI within industry that's already, providing solutions. And how we do this is through applied knowledge. So this is a little bit of a snapshot of the different requirements for AI. And to have a practical focus on AI, to have that really applied focus, we really have to work deeply with clients to, I'll steal some words from an advisor, envision how it's going to be implemented and the impact it will have on the business. There's lots of talk about AI, there's data scientists and the new competencies required for AI, which are represented in the Venn diagram. Yet when it comes to adopting, data is really the foundation. It can be tricky and time consuming. The integration into current systems like SCADA or otherwise means change, communication between systems, between people, and the management buy-in to actually move an AI solution from training into adoption. And really, compute is often overlooked. It's a cost, and it also presents risks that might not be known at the outset of AI adoption. So that's really why the entrepreneurs got together and tried to address a solution locally. So for some of you who are in this space or have looked at this space, you may be familiar with the big cloud providers, or you may know of the research systems for computation that exist for universities and otherwise. And in the industrial space, you may actually even experience some of the provider lock-in that's a risk related to AI adoption as well. Your AI training environment doesn't have to be the same as the production environment, but I think Francois is on the call, our technical guru at Isaac, and he often says it's like IT divorce. When you get started, you're not necessarily thinking about the messy exit strategy or the succession plan of getting into production. And there can be big costs to move data, to learn new tool sets or find substitutes in that way of operationalizing. So our position with Isaac is really to help local business early on. When they want to try AI, when they want to iterate, they're not sure about the risks and the costs, really about keeping data in Canada, proprietary to businesses and shared in a way that's beneficial to them so that they can remain open and flexible to what's good for their business rather than the provider. And that was really led in well with the first presentation when he mentioned the whole open movement. So that's really where we fit in as well. Particular to AI and industrial automation, some of the things we talked about on our team with the folks we work with is its place in optimization and in cost savings, in specific problem solving within the process line itself, and in where it was mentioned for 5G or sensors. Sensors, as they're being increasingly utilized, create huge amounts of data. So that data needs a huge amount of compute capacity to back it up as well. In the sandbox environment, there is opportunities for data related on the synthetic side to supplement a proprietary data set with an open data set, and to look at industry shared opportunities for data where there's really common problems. And in the industrial settings that I've been exposed to, one of those examples is like in safety. The one key challenge that we talk about is the system's compatibility and interfaces. So as you look to an AI solution, it's still got to work amongst the solutions that and products that are in operation at the business. So that's really where Isaac fits in, is providing that training and computation environment to allow local businesses to succeed in optimizing their industrial applications and automations. So thanks very much, Miranda.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. Does anyone have any specific questions for Chris and Isaac at the moment before we move on to Arthur? Again, you can unmute yourselves if you want to voice it or type it in the chat box. Head into the chat box, everyone, at some point and have a look at the back and forth between Chowdhury and Ian.
Actually, it's Ian here. Chris, I wanted to follow up on that. I caught the thing about the messy divorce. Are you saying that it's that is that kind of saying that you have to be aware of your production environment when you're doing your training development or in training development? Do they have to be the same environment, or what's the risk? Is that what you're saying? There's a big risk in moving from, say, I did my training on, heaven forbid, on Google or something, and then I wanted to move to Azure, or on yours, or I guess and if you can't answer it, your techie guy that's here can.
Yeah, well, the short answer maybe we can do right now is that the specific is related to data egress costs. So often when you get credits through a big cloud provider and you're loading data on and loading data on and loading data on, there's no charge. It's kind of like the situation where then when you want to get out, when you want to move out of training into production, if you choose to do that somewhere else, there's huge costs potentially for taking it off and moving it to another system. There's also somewhat of a tool lock-in. So in some sense, I can move back up to that slide. I'll see if I can go back here. Each provider can have its own proprietary tool set. So it's like a branded hammer in a virtual environment. And once you're used to using that one, even though another one might be better, the learning curve is often there. So to your point on open source movements and open movements, it's how do we make all those open tools available, especially in that critical phase when clients or companies are deciding whether AI is a good fit for them and whether there's ROI for it in their business. So there is some risks in making that change later on, for sure, that a lot of clients are unaware of.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I noticed even I took a Google Cloud thing just for some orientation, and they don't even have the tools themselves. They actually farm out to another organization to do a lot of their data pre-processing. So it's kind of interesting. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more questions right now for Chris, we'll move on to Arthur and hear about what he's been up to. Arthur, unmute yourself, please.
Okay.
Wonderful.
I don't have any slides, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. We'll look at your beautiful face.
Right. Okay. I tell you a little bit about myself. Right now, I'm ISA, International Society of Automation president for Edmonton section. And if you want to know more about automation itself, you should join ISA. It's a shameless plug, and for students, it's really inexpensive and gives you a lot of good things. You can join our meetings, you can network, you can learn a lot about automation platform and industrial automation by, symbiosis, talking to people, or you can take courses. So that's it about ISA. ISAedmonton.org. Okay. Now about me. I've been in Alberta for over 40 years, mostly doing industrial automation in different aspects in wastewater, water, operating companies, oil and gas quite a bit. I do consulting, and the Clockworks is doing consulting with me. And basically right now I'm working for Worley, and the last 10, 15 years, I've been designing pipelines, pipeline control systems. And that's where, industrial automation, is very, very important. And artificial intelligence is getting into there. The operating companies, especially companies established like Enbridge, IPF, Interpipeline, and Transcana TC Energy, are very reluctant to change. They like status quo. They like, stuff that works 99.999% of the time. So anything new is looked with suspicion. But, industrial AI has a great, application in that, in leak detection, in the predictive maintenance. And there are a lot of companies in Alberta that look into that. So this is the application I see that it's very, very important to use. And, especially leak detection is something that people talk a little bit about it, but is very important from, safety, environmental safety, and really as well as PR. Because if you look at from technical point of view, the pipelines are very safe, but perception from general public is that they not, they will leak eventually. Yes, they will. But 99% of the leaks happens at the very small area, and the leaks are, between 100 liters and 200 liters, maybe 500 liters. So it's very small at the flanges, but those small leaks are very difficult to detect. You can detect a large leak very quickly, or small leak over long period of time. And, AI can help determine when is the leak, small leak, and it will allow the companies to do quick remedial action. So this is the thing I see importance of applying the AI. Other problem in industrial automation that I think few people, including Ian, talk about it is succession planning. We're getting older, and the younger people are, far in between in that area, especially. And even if they are interested in it, I get a lot of questions how I get into the industrial automation. And it's really difficult to say, because there's not a program on that. Nate has a great program, SAIT as well. But if you are not taking any of those courses, it's really difficult to become, proficient in that on your own. The courses are very expensive. Software is very proprietary, especially if you're looking at DCS systems. And it's really difficult to tell people how they can do it. You know, you can take some courses online that they very generous, but you need a software that you can practice on, and that is difficult. And I hope that we can discuss part of it about succession learning and mentoring and young people to take our place. That's my story.
Wonderful.
Sorry, Miranda. This is Gail. Just a quick question I wanted to put to Arthur in that Rainforest is a community that I've already mentioned brings together entrepreneurs, inventors, investors, and people who want to work for tech companies and enable tech companies. One cool thing about the ISA is that it brings together companies, entrepreneurs that have technology for industrial automation, but it also joins them with customers who are using them, and that collectively, by having both of these groups together, we can provide better solutions to all industries. And I was just wondering, Arthur, can you just tell us a little bit about the Edmonton chapter and who your members work for, so that some of the tech companies here can understand how to talk to some potential customers?
So a lot of people interested in ISA come from the vendors. So people selling, you know, transmitters, selling industrial equipment, industrial control systems, because that way they can meet people and network and meet their future customers if they are not already their customers. So that's one group, and they're very active because that's how they get more money from their employee, basically, by selling more stuff and meeting more people. The other group is end users. End users are, you know, people working for large companies like Epcor, Enbridge, TransAlta, Capital Power, IPF, TC Energy. I keep using old name TransCanada. You know, they changed the name to TC Energy, so there is no Canada in the name, so they can sell themselves in the US pretty easily. So that's a second part of, you know, people that are part of ISA. There is also a lot of consultants like myself and people just interested in industrial automation and instrumentation. Besides that, we have also student chapters, and very active chapter is with Nate, and it's run by one of the professors, and they very interested, and they have some Zoom meetings and Zoom webinars, and they attend our meetings, because Edmonton chapter of ISA we used to have, you know, face-to-face meeting once a month with technical content, where we had people from industrial automation field, either from operating company or from the vendors, talking about solutions. We had people talking about design of the rail terminal when they loading rail cars with the oil, for example. It's located in South Edmonton, near the South terminal of Enbridge. So it's quite interesting application there. They can load, I think, two trains of 160 cars a day. So it's quite an operation there. We also have section from University of Alberta. They've been active for a couple of years, and last year they kind of disappeared from the surface of the earth, and we're trying to find people interested in it, because people graduate, get the jobs, they move around, and if there is no succession planning in the plan there, the section kind of dies without support from university. There is we have in the springtime, we had a tour of nearby industrial facilities that students can attend. It's I think a weekly long tour. They tour different facilities and meet with the specialists from them, technical specialists, and they will get a tour of each facility, can ask questions and see how the real operation and how the industrial automation in practice is being used. So that's basically how the Edmonton section operates. And every 2 years we have a Edmonton Automation Expo and Show. This year it's supposed to be in April, but because of COVID, it was postponed to October, and we decided to make it virtual because it was too much risk to do it in person, and was also impossible. So it was switch over to the virtual show and expo, and was very successful. We had over 650 people attending. We had 6 different tracks on different aspects of industrial automation, leak detection, alarm control, and optimization, cybersecurity. So that was very interesting, and was not that expensive for what it delivered, because we were charging $200 for 1 day of 8 hours of basically solid learning. So it was really good value for the money.
Arthur, you touched on something really that I find really interesting. So the whole idea of succession planning is obviously really important in the automation industry and across a lot of industries, but interesting, the younger generation in industrial automation, are there, and this is a question for the whole panel, what are some changes in policies and programs that you would like to see to benefit industrial automation, especially in Alberta? So it could be more programs in industrial automation. So university students coming out of school just don't have a comp sci degree, but maybe they have already some background information in industrial automation, rather than having to completely onboard them to a new industry when they get out of school. Doesn't have to be that, but I'd just like to hear your thoughts on some different policies or programs you think could benefit us.
There are.
Sorry, Arthur, go ahead. So the thing is that IT and OT are getting a lot closer. So fortunately, we have great places like the AI and ML people at the university there. You're one of the hubs that we can start. And Willow Glen is one of the places where we try to suck those people in. As Arthur will attest, that it's a slight difference in mindset, but we're all working packets now. And so guys like Arthur and I with our analog backgrounds are becoming more and more valuable, but everything, all the new equipment is analog. It's all, Chris, more and more we're using open library stuff to underneath it. So all the same skills. So we're actually getting a broader base of people. The problem is, if you'll pardon the expression, is automation is just not sexy enough. People don't want to, they still think of us as dirty oil, dirty this. So I don't know how we can, what do we do? I think the challenge is to make it exciting to come here, because it is exciting and there's lots happening. And I think Wayne, our CEO, might have the right idea. And that's why that slide, right, about, if you come into automation, a small difference makes a huge, like a small change can make a huge difference because of the magnitude of the impact, right? Arthur gave examples of leak detection. Well, if you want to stop leak protection and methane emissions, automation's how we do it. So maybe that's how we got to tune our message to the audience. So I'll get off my soapbox. And
Actually, can I jump in? This is Gail. I know how I found an interest in industrial automation many years ago. What was just that it helps diversify our economy, and it also, a job in industrial automation doesn't tie you to one industry, and so you don't ride the highs and lows of an oil industry. You can actually serve, as Willow Glen does, and a company I used to work with as well, Matricon. We serve utilities, oil and gas, mining, et cetera, et cetera. And so, rail, obviously, at Willow Glen. So the whole, it equalizes. Industrial automation is needed everywhere. So that's a skill set as, young engineers are going into engineering or graduating. You go into that space, so you can apply exciting technologies across many different industries. So you're continuously learning in the industry, the applications, and more. So it is very sexy.
Yes, one of the industries that are slowly catching up is agriculture, and a lot of farmers are starting to use industrial automation. People are not aware that most of the combines, they have a self-drive right now. They can run on GPS and run automatically. So, the other industry, right now it's fairly manual. It's a cannabis industry. It's a huge potential in the automation because it can improve yields and then can minimize the human error and exposure as well. So diversification is absolutely, you can design a lot of younger generation, doing a lot of electronics and using Raspberry Pi and Arduino, doing a lot of things. This is automation, and it's another step from there to industrial automation using serious hardware, because none of the platforms that I told you are industrially hardened, and they're not really well suitable for industrial application. But this is really small step from little projects, electronic projects, into the industrial stuff. So there is a potential, and a lot of people I think are interested, but it's one of the reasons is what Ian said. It's a dirty industry and we have bad reputation, bad rap. We have to change it somehow.
Chris, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I was going to mention one point that's really exciting from our client or our stakeholders, and just my experience as well with small enterprise, is that oftentimes the AI application is really about continuous improvement and finding the problem to solve. So we think of AI as being a huge disruptor and taking on, this radical innovation. Often its application in the most functional way is something that's already ongoing in the industrial setting, within the control systems, within the whatever operating mechanisms are there. So to Gail's point about careers in industrial automation, it really does require that domain expertise to make AI actually work in that setting. So it's really critical that we have those folks who are interested in that as a career path as well, and gaining that experience.
Right.
Any thoughts there, Chowdhury?
Yeah, I think initially we talked about the traditional barriers are blurring, right? Like there is a huge OT, operational technologies, and IT, right? It's no longer valid, right? The nature of job itself is changing, and right now, like a control engineering, chemical engineering, and artificial intelligence, everything coming together to solve problems, right? All the easy problems are solved through a traditional PLC programming or a simple DCS or an advanced process controls and whatnot. Now there are tough problems out there, and it's very, very difficult, and which creates the challenges, hence the AI and other tools and techniques, right? So the nature of job itself is changing for the newcomers that are coming into the industry, and change is good, and that creates a high paying jobs, and we are keep improving, right? It's a step change rather than a continuous change is what we are going to experience in next couple of years,
Yeah.
whether we like it or not.
Thank you for all your thoughts on that question. We've got the chats going off, but I think people are answering things in the chat as we go there. So do you have any asks that your companies have, whether it be hiring, investment programs, to help you and your companies elevate in the Alberta economy and also on the world stage? Because I think something that Canada doesn't do very well is talk about how great Canada is. And our industry certainly suffers from that.
Sorry about that.
One of the great things about industrial automation is like Ian said, the small changes make such significant impacts. And I think that's kind of what we need to sell to the generation up and coming. Like, do you want to make a difference? If so, this is the industry for you. Because there's a lot of industries out there where you don't really make a difference, but this is definitely one that does. So fire away. We'll start with Chris. Is there anything that you're after? Investments, programs, new hires?
Yeah, I think just to build on the point, it's also to really challenge each company to look at what's possible in a shared way and an open way with the future of technology as well. So often we've been looking, I think Arthur is a great example with your industry affiliations. We look for solutions for ourselves in a proprietary way, and there's also a lot we can accomplish by working together. So that's the position for Isaac moving forward, is to allow us to be that big player on a global level by harnessing all of this potential in sectors like industrial that are already strong in Alberta, and amplifying them, growing them, telling that story and sharing that knowledge to really build solutions for a world stage. So that would be my call out, is be unafraid to talk about it and be unafraid to have those bigger goals and see what's possible together, and as individual companies achieving continuous improvement goals.
Wonderful. Love that. Chowdhury?
I mean, as I said, there are quite a few tough challenges out there, and we always look for the input and what we can solve the problems together. A simple example would be what my colleagues at Entwist and colleagues at Willowglen trying to solve a very, very difficult and challenging pipeline problems, which I would, what Arthur said initially, right? It's not only solving the tough problems, but also making an impact on the industry and the economy and the greenhouse gas emissions. That's what we are trying to do, and we, continuously look for those tough challenges. And anybody has any tough challenges, come to us, and with the right partnerships, we should be able to solve these problems, either from academia or from industry, and we are here, and also Willowglen is here. We are more than happy to help.
I like that. The open source movement, the partnerships, the environmental impact that industrial automation and these efficiencies can have. So turning a previously dirty oil and gas industry, we can make it a hell of a lot greener with industrial automation, which I think is a great story. Yet again, that's not told nearly well enough coming from Alberta, but I think we're greening up the place quite well. Ian, over to you.
Well, I think one challenge is one challenge we face is what we said, the knowledge that that's sitting there at home dormant, right? There's a lot of people were laid off, not just in oil and gas, but these are all smart people. So how can we use, how can we, all of us are, I think the tech sector is growing, the government people say, oh, we've got the tech sector is the future. So I don't know. I certainly don't know how, but that's probably I think one great way that we could reinvigorate and get the message out, like you just said, Miranda, right? That, yeah, we might be dirty oil, but there's dirty oil and then there's really dirty oil. And we're, if you look at us, the way we do it in Alberta, so we can look at exporting our expertise. And a lot of people just don't give Alberta and Western Canada enough credit for the brain power that we have. And I mean Arthur, Chris, Chowdhury, a lot of the people here got Gail, right? I'm the dummy in the crowd. So and, I reaffirm it every time I go to a standards meeting. I reinforce that I'm the dummy in the crowd. So we have a lot of smart people here, and we just got to get them working and get the word out that we have them out here.
Well said. And Arthur, that standards ties straight back to you.
Okay, so what I think is one possibility, we should have one of our monthly ISA technical talks based on IA and application for industrial automation. So I'll be talking to Gail, and maybe I'll talk as well to our program director, and we schedule something for next year to include the artificial intelligence application, because Alberta is leading, Canada in IA. We have a great result here.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I would love to have that conversation, Arthur. And Miranda, if I could, we have a special guest in the audience. And so I'd like to get him up to say some words, because he's also in this space. So
take it away.
James Kirstead is president of Levin Electronics, and he's also the leader of the local rainforest. So James, could you give just your perspective from your company's space and perhaps some closing words?
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. Firstly, I'd like to mirror Ian's earlier comments and Arthur's earlier comments about, we're doing automation. It's happening all over the world right now. We're in the home automation space, which, it's not as serious as the stuff that Arthur and Ian are doing in industrial automation, but people are starting to see the impact that it can have on their lives. And it typically starts there, something really tangible and easy for them. And I think we will see more people moving towards the understanding of how important it is. I'm also a big believer that we miss a lot of opportunity inside Alberta using automation inside manufacturing operations. I happen to know a few businesses that are using welding automation and PLCs for even very simple things. In one of my businesses that does injection molding, we're using PLCs just to spruce pickers, right? Just so we can eliminate having to have a person right there at the machine. So I think I do agree, people need to think outside of the traditional industrial automation mindset, because there's a lot of opportunities that are popping up that are really exciting. And I appreciate from someone in the rainforest, I appreciate how everyone continues to get together. I can't always be on the calls and that, but I love showing up and seeing how everyone's connecting and learning and sharing. So thank you all for attending.
Thanks, James. Yeah, what a perfect way to end it off. And we're at 5:31, so almost on time. The different email addresses of our panelists are now in the chat if anyone wanted to snoop over there and copy them. But otherwise, as host, I'm thank you all for attending. It was a wonderful learning opportunity for me still in the industry, and I'm sure a lot of you as well. And thank you for our panelists. Thank you, Mamit, from Rainforest Alberta. Thank you, James, from Rainforest Alberta. And thank you, Technology Alberta as well, for getting us all together.
Definitely a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. And see you next month. Bye now.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.